Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we will take a look at one of the best mods you can get for the End Dimension, the Better End mod. This mod was made by the same creator as the Better Nether mod, so you know the quality you'll get from this. This mod adds in 17 land biomes, 1 void biome, and 5 cave biomes, as well as 6 mobs and many new items and blocks. The ambiance in this mod is amazing with music, sound effects, and colored fog with shaders that really tie the biomes together. I'll have my shaders and data packs in the description below, as well as the mod download so you can check them out for yourself. First, let's talk about the land biomes, what they look like, and what you can find in them. Endermen spawn in all end biomes. The first land biome we have is the Amber Lands, which are forests of twisting trees and tall vegetation. This biome is unsurprisingly dominated by a warm amber palette, and the floor is covered with amber moss. This biome's most visible feature are the tall orange helix trees scattered throughout the terrain, and there is lots of vegetation with amber grass, bulb moss, glowing pillars, orange and red charnia, and lance leaf. The only mob that spawns here are end slimes. The next biome up is the Blossoming Spires. This is a very pink biome made up of floating islands and spires covered in lush foliage with petal particles falling from the sky. In this biome you can find silk moth nests and silk moss. The ground is covered in pink moss and Tenania trees light up the landscape. The vegetation here are bulb vines, bushy grass, twisted moss, and blossom berries. Next we have the Chorus Forest, which are purple fog-covered islands where you can find chorus plants in large mushroom-covered pythodendron trees. You can also find small ponds with charnia as well as violecite ruins. The terrain is made up of chorus nylium, and the vegetation you can find here are chorus plants, chorus grass, tail moss, purple polypore, and purple and red charnia. And slimes also spawn here. Now we have the Crystal Mountains, which are hilly islands with bright, colorful crystal peaks emerging from the terrain. These biomes are mostly empty apart from the crystals and are surrounded by a border of small meadows. The ground here is made up of crystal moss and endstone, and the only plants are crystal grass. The Dragon Graveyards are red islands with mushrooms and pillars of mossy obsidian dotting the landscape. Fireflies drift through the red fog, and giant amaranita trees mingle among the ground mushrooms. The terrain is composed of sangnum, and the vegetation you can find is clawfern, globulagus, and large and small amaranita. The next biome is the dry shrublands, which are mostly empty islands covered with short plants. The ground is made up of rusticus, and lucernia bushes are what you can find here instead of trees. The plants are iridium, lemarlarium, lutibus, and orango. The next biome is even more desolate than the previous. The Dust Wastelands is a pale yellow biome made up of endstone dust with dust floating throughout the air. Next we have the Foggy Mushroomland, which is a lush biome filled with blue moss and giant glowing mushrooms. You can also occasionally find lakes full of aquatic life throughout the biome. The ground is made up of end moss and end mycelium, and the trees are giant mossy glowshroom. There are plenty of plants in this biome, such as the blue vine, creeping moss, cyan, light blue, and red charnia, cyan moss, dense vine, end lilies, and umbrella moss. The mobs that spawn here are dragonflies, end fish, end slime, and cubozoas. Next are the Glowing Grasslands, which are islands covered in various plants and large flowers that illuminate the terrain. Fireflies drift throughout the cyan fog. Lumicorn lights up the scene, and the varied foliage is composed of cyan, green, light blue, and red charnia, blooming cooksonia, creeping moss, saltago, twisted and regular umbrella moss, and violush fern. The Lantern Woods are vibrant forests with glowing flowers resembling lanterns hanging from trees and floating in the sky. There are small ponds with lily pads, and anemones can occasionally be found in this orange biome. The trees are lucernia, and the plants are iridium, orange polypore, bollux mushrooms, flamea, lamellarium, orange and red charnia, pond anemones, and ruscus and philolux. The next biome is the Mega Lake, which is a lush biome with massive multi-tiered lakes full of life. Menger sponges and bubble coral can be found in the lakes. The terrain is end moss and endstone dust, and the plants are creeping moss, cyan, light blue, and red charnia, end lilies, and umbrella moss. The mobs that spawn here are cubozoa, dragonflies, end fish, and end slime. Then we have the Mega Lake Groves, which are lush groves of large, moss-covered trees, which can also have the lakes featured in the previous biome. The trees are lacugrove trees, and the terrain is made up of end moss and endstone dust. The plants are creeping moss, cyan, light blue, and red charnia, and lily, mender sponges, bubble coral, and umbrella moss. The mobs are cubozoa, dragonflies, and fish and end slimes. Next up we have the Neon Oasis, which resembles a lush desert. It is filled with large glowing cactus plants and ponds of charnia. The ground is made up of endstone dust and end moss, and the vegetation you can find are creeping moss, cyan, green, and red charnia, umbrella moss, and neon cacti. The painted mountains are barren, striped mountains made up of layers of endstone, violecite, and flavolite. There is not much else in this biome. Next up is the Shadow Forest, which is a dark and dangerous forest filled with dragon trees and hanging vines. There are thorny plants littering the floor that can damage and blind the player. Shadow grass covers the ground, and the plants you can find here are milkweed, needlegrass, purple and red charnia, purple polypore, shadow berries, shadow plants, tail moss, and twisted vines. There are also some unique mobs to this biome, being the Shadow Walker and Phantom. Next we have the Sulphur Springs, which are islands featuring towering geysers and surface vents. Inside these geysers you can find sulfur crystals and hydrolux. The terrain here is varied, made up of brimstone, sulfuric rock, endstone, and flavolite. The plants are hydrolux, orange, red, and green charnia, and tube worms. Cubozoa and end fish spawn here. The Umbrella Jungle is a dense jungle filled with moss and giant mushrooms. Hanging vines, jelly shrooms, and ferns can be found growing on the fungal trees, and jelly shroom spores fill the air. The ground is jungle moss, and there are jelly shroom and umbrella trees. There are many plants here, such as cyan, green, light blue, and red charnia, cyan moss, jungle fern, grass and vine, umbrella moss, and small jelly shrooms. Finally, we have the Umbra Valley, which is a stark black and white biome with towering rocky arches jutting out from the ground. The only void biome so far is the Ice Starfield, which is an area in space where variable-sized stars of ice generate in the void. The terrain is emerald, ice, and dense snow, and white fog shrouds the area. Better End also adds in a fair amount of cave biomes which generate underneath end islands, the first of which is the Empty Aurora Cave. This endstone cave is filled with pink fog and has endstone stalactites and large aurora crystals. Lush aurora caves are made up of cave moss, and in here you can find large aurora crystals, cave bushes, cave grass, and cave moss endstone stalagmites. On the ceiling you can find cave bushes, cave pumpkins, rubinea, magnula, and cave moss endstone stalactites. Next is the Jade Cave, which are caves filled with green fog and are made up of virid, azure, and sandy jadestone. Then we have the Empty Smaragdant Cave, which are endstone caves of smaragdant crystals, smaragdant crystal shards, and endstone stalactites. The lush Smaragdant Caves are similar to Smaragdant Caves but are made of cave moss. They still have smaragdant crystals and shards as well as endstone stalactites. Next, we'll move on to the entities added by this mod. There's not a whole lot of mobs yet, but there's still a good amount of variety between air, land, and water mobs. The first air mob is the Dragonfly. These ambient flying insects have 4 hearts and will randomly fly around the world. They spawn in foggy mushroom lands, mega lakes, and mega lake groves. They do not drop anything on death. Next is the Silk Moth, which is a small flying insect with just 1 heart. They spawn in blossoming spires. They will enter silk moth hives and fill them with silk. They will also try to fly to and enter silk moth nests. If you shear a full hive, you can get a silk moth matrix, which can be used to make another hive and farm silk. They drop silk fiber on death. Next we have the Shadow Walker, which is one of the only hostile mobs in the mod so far, and spawns in Shadow Forest. This is a shadowy, humanoid creature that will slowly stalk the player. If you touch them, you will receive temporary blindness. They do not drop anything on death. Finally, for the land mobs, we have the End Slime, which are relatives of Overworld Slimes. They have 4 variants depending on which biome they spend in, which can be Amberland, Chorus Forest, Foggy Mushroomlands, Mega Lakes, and Mega Lake Groves. They are hostile to the player and drop slime balls on death. Next we have the water mobs, the first of which is the End Fish. These colorful, glowing fish can be found in lakes and geysers in the Foggy Mushroomland, Mega Lake Grove, and Sulphur Springs. Their colors vary based on the biome in which the fish was founded. They can be captured in a bucket. There are 8 different colors and they drop end fish when slain. Last up is the Cubozoa, which are glowing jellyfish-like mobs that can be found in water with 2 different color variants. They can spawn in Foggy Mushroomland, Mega Lake and Mega Lake Groves, and Sulphur Springs. They can be captured alive in buckets, but be careful not to get poisoned when doing so. They drop gelatin when killed. This mod also adds in a few new mechanics to your game on top of the new biomes and mobs. Infusion is a new mechanic and a way to create some advanced items such as enchanted books and good and related armor. To use it, you need to build a circle of pedestals and place the correct items in the correct spot. To make this easier, it is highly recommended to use a recipe mod such as REI. Then we have the Endstone Smelter, which is how you get some of the new materials added by the mod. It can also be used to smelt vanilla materials such as iron, and can either be a faster way of smelting your ores, or will take a little longer but give you higher return than a vanilla furnace. Once again, REI is very useful for finding recipes for new materials. This will take any fuel with over 2,000 burn ticks, such as lava or blaze rods. The mod also adds in a new structure called the Eternal Portal. You can sometimes find ruined portals in the overworld. Repairing them will get you a two-sided portal between the overworld and the end, with a 1-to-1 distance scale. The mod also adds in a new way of crafting tools by using a smith hammer and some ingots in a unique way to get the tool part, then by combining it with a leather wrap stick to craft the tool. Speaking of new tools, let's talk about the materials added by the mod, the first of which being end shards. You can obtain these by mining ender ore, which generate an end stone. These are used to create eternal crystals and end dust. Next is thalassium, which is obtained from smelting thalassium ore. This ore generates an endstone and is slightly better than iron, with a little additional knockback resistance, armor toughness, and attack speed. Then we have terminite, which is obtained by smelting ender dust with either thalassium or iron ingots together in the endstone smelter. This armor is just about on par with diamond armor, although it has additional armor toughness, knockback resistance, and attack speed. Aurora crystal shards can be obtained by breaking aurora crystals and are used in a variety of crafting and infusion recipes. You can infuse terminite gear with amber and aurora crystal shards to obtain the crystallite armor set, which in addition to its good stats also grants you various positive effects when worn. Next we have Eternium, which can only be created by smelting together a terminite ingot with a netherite ingot in the endstone smelter. This is the best set in the game. Raw amber is obtained from breaking amber ore, which generates in the Amberlands biome. It is used to craft amber gems, which are used in a multitude of infusion recipes. Hydrolux petals are obtained in the Sulphur Springs biome caves and are used to create enchanted petals, which in turn can be used in infusion recipes to create many enchanted books. Better End also adds in an enchantment called End Veil, which you can apply to a helmet to prevent Endermen from attacking you when you look at them. And of course, this mod adds in many new blocks with all the variants you would expect to come from them, as well as pedestals, lanterns, furnaces, and flower pots. They are Flavolite, which generates in Painted Mountains and Sulphur Springs, Violasite, which generates in the Chorus Forest and Painted Mountains, Sulfuric Rock, which generates in Sulphur Springs, Virid Azure and Sandy Jadestone, which generates in Jade Caves, Umbralith, which generates in Umbra Valleys, Mossy Glowshroom, which can be obtained from trees in the Foggy Mushroomland, Pythodendron, which can be obtained from trees found in the Chorus Forest, and Lotus, which can be found in Mega Lakes and Mega Lake Groves, Lacu Grove, which can be obtained from Lacu Grove trees in Mega Lake Groves, Dragon Tree, which can be obtained from dragon trees in the Shadow Forest, Tenania, which can be obtained from Tenania trees in the Blossoming Spires, Helix Tree, which can be obtained from Helix trees in the Amber Lands, Umbrella Tree, which can be obtained from Umbrella trees in the Umbrella Jungle, Jelly Shroom, which can be obtained from Jelly Shroom in the Umbrella Jungle, and Lucernia, which can be obtained from Lucernia bushes in the Dry Shrublands and Lucernia trees in the Lantern Woods. And with that, that covers most of the content added by this mod. Like all mods by this creator, Better End is an absolutely amazing mod that is sure to breathe fresh life into your Minecraft world, so I highly recommend downloading yourself. Link will be in the description. There's even a version for Fabric and Forge. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more content. Peace out, everybody.